Tonight, we are very honored to have Gemma here, a British illustrator, a cartoonist currently residing in Southern California with her husband, who's here tonight, and their beloved pugs. She studied graphic design and illustration at the Norwich School of Art and Design, graduating in 2006. In 2015, she relocated here to the United States. Gemma's simple line drawings are infused with narrative and humor, allowing her illustrations to catch the eye and tell engaging stories. Her distinctive style has attracted a diverse range of clients, including Amazon and the Washington Post, for projects that span animated online advertisements and autobiographical comics. Additionally, Gemma has illustrated many children's books and has extensive experience in publishing, editorial work, and social media projects. She also licenses her artwork for use on merchandise, homeware, and fashion products. And her graphic novel, Anxiety Land, is set to be published on April 2026. With that, let's introduce Gemma out to the stage. Hi. Great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so let's jump right into this. Let's start at the beginning. What do you remember most about growing up as a kid who was always drawing?
Well, I remember that I was always drawing. I grew up, I was always really into reading and cartoons, sort of into comics, but I actually got into those a little properly a little later. But I used to read there's a comic in the UK called The Beano, which you might have heard of. It's a comic for boys, or it was at the time for boys. Um, but I used to get a comic called The Bunty, which was the one for girls, and it was all about horses and jolly hockey sticks. And so I was a little bored by that one, so I used to steal my brother's Beano. And I would just draw whenever I could on anything I could. So, like my grandmother used to save the little cards that come in packets of tights, and I would draw on those. I would collect old notebooks. Like any piece of paper was not safe with me around, basically.
Nice. Did you have a moment early on when you realized art felt different or more important to you?
Yeah, I think that I found it to be a way that I could process the world around me. And I was very shy as a child, and I found it a little overwhelming to be in the world around other people. And then drawing and books felt very safe to me. And I realized that I could use drawing as like the paper as kind of a conduit between my brain and my thoughts, and I could finally understand them.
So you studied at the Norwich School of Art and Design.
Yes.
How did that experience shape you and what pushed you towards illustration as opposed to other creative paths?
Well, I wasn't sure throughout school and throughout high school whether I would actually become an artist. I didn't really know that it was a viable career path. Everybody in my family was in like teaching or medicine or that kind of area. Um, So I changed my mind a few times about what I was going to do. I thought about it. I actually started to study English literature for a little while before realizing that I'd always wanted to do art in some capacity. So I eventually ended up at the Norwich School of Art and Design, and I chose to do a graphic design course, which in the first year you study graphic design and illustration and animation and photography, so it was a really wide range of subjects. So I thought, well, at least design is kind of like that's a job. I know that graphic designer is a real job. And then while I was there, although I'd grown up always doing basically illustration, I'd always write my own stories and illustrate them. It wasn't until I was at art school and I saw the different career paths that were offered in illustration that I kind of thought, oh, actually, this is something that I might be able to do.
So you were telling me that you used to make your own comics for your classmates
Yes.
and you wrote your own stories.
Yes.
What were these early creations like? And did you ever imagine that they could turn into a career?
Um, well, I used to, inspired by the Beano,
Yeah.
I used to write a comic called The Chatterbox. So I basically did the entire comic. I did the letter to the editor. I did competitions. I saved up all my pocket money to buy candy to sellotape onto the front of the magazine. And then very kindly, my teacher let me photocopy the comic in the school office. So I did that, and then I would sell it, forcibly sell it, you might say, to my classmates and family for 20p, so about 20 cents. Um, and It was just something that I love to do. I also illustrated a monthly column in my the church that my families went to, monthly newsletter. So I had an idea that maybe it was something that people did, because obviously the writers of the Beano had it as a job, but I didn't live in London. London was the center of the media. I was in a small town, like an hour away from London on the train. It just didn't seem like something that people like me did.
So you had told me about a professor spoke to you and said you should pursue illustration professionally. What was it about that conversation that really kind of clicked for you?
Well, while I was at college at the Norwich School of Art and Design, I was still trying to do what I thought I should do as an artist, which, from being at high school where it was all very much about fine arts and painting, I was like, this is what I should be doing if I want to become an illustrator. I should be painting and I should be doing realism. And But then on the side, I had my sketchbooks, which I worked in all the time, not necessarily for school projects, just like personal work. And I think my professor just kind of saw one day over my shoulder what I was drawing, and he was like, "This is what you should be doing. Please stop painting. It's not good." um, yeah, like this is obviously your path. And I just kind of, it clicked in that moment. I was like, oh yeah, obviously this is what I should be doing.
Yeah. And just so you know, I'm showing a lot of different variations of her artwork on the back screen here. So definitely have some interesting ones and some definitely some funny ones for sure.
Yeah, I've tried to go in kind of date order, so we're starting with the earlier ones.
So after graduating, you jumped into editorial work, competitions like Threadless, you were telling me about, and eventually doing some Etsy stores along those lines. What were those early professional years like as you navigated your passion into income and making this more of a professional role for you?
Well, I graduated in 2006, and at the time, it was the internet was quite new as a place to promote work. So I was lucky in that I worked in a store that sold websites in a box. So I got a discount on my website in a box, and I made my website and I put it on the cards that I made to give away at my graduation show. And it happened to be that somebody who worked for Virgin Media saw my work and contacted me to do a project for Virgin Holidays. So I did this kind of travel brochure illustrations. And then I also used to go to, I don't know if you had Borders, the bookstore Borders here.
Yep.
Yeah, I used to go to the one in the city that I lived in and check all the magazines and write down the art directors' names at the front of the magazines and send them postcards or send them emails. So I was doing that at the same time as I was initially working in a shop. I used to work in a shop called Top Man. You might know Top Shop. It kind of still exists now, I think. I used to work in the shoe department of Top Man. And after that, I started working for a couple of years in a elementary school. I worked as a teaching assistant. And while doing illustration kind of on the side and at the weekends. And I was making a lot of my own products. I was doing a lot of screen printing and sewing, like making little brooches and tote bags, things like that. And I was selling them on Etsy, which was fairly new at the time. And also doing a lot of art markets on the weekends. And also there was Threadless, which was also like kind of a new thing at the time. I would send designs to Threadless, and I won a couple of times. It was kind of a voting system. So they printed my t-shirts and they paid me some money. And eventually I had enough of this stuff happening that I felt confident enough and financially stable enough that I was able to go full-time as an illustrator. So that was about 5 years after finishing college.
I like this one right here. You can see on the screen.
Oh yeah, those are my critters buttons.
So your style today, I mean, it's very distinctive. Bold line work, the iconic red and black, and your reoccurring characters is instantly recognizable. How did that identity develop over time?
Well, I have always drawn in the same sort of line heavy style, um, which is the style that I was drawing in as a kid, the kind of comic, like black and white style. And then the style I was drawing in my sketchbooks at college, where my teacher said you should stop painting. And the reason I chose black and red initially is because I had quite a bad scanner. And when I tried to use too many colors, the scanner wouldn't pick them up and it would look bad. But the scanner was pretty good at picking up red. So I just started using red, black and red only. And then I kind of liked it. I liked the graphicness, the simplicity. And so just from there, I made that like my main thing. And I do use color as well, but I think my most recognizable work is kind of the black and red like this.
Yeah. And what is it about using yourself as a character in this?
Again, it's something that I've always done, as like I said, as a way to make sense of the world, and my place in it. It always just made sense to use myself as a character. Everything that I draw, or not everything, but a lot of what I draw is very personal, comes from my daily life and from my own brain. So I've kind of, again, perfected my character over the years. I've, like I said, drawn in quite a similar style from the very beginning, but I have got myself down now as
Yeah.
the kind of avatar almost.
Like this one. So this one thing that we notice a lot in your comics and your illustrations is your discovery of pugs. And you were telling me a great story about this, which definitely I want to hear about more, this meetup that happened in San Francisco. What about that moment inspired such a long running theme in your art?
Well, I have always liked animals in general. I grew up with a cat named Oliver, who was like my best friend, and my parents did have dogs. They had Labrador retrievers mostly. But a couple of years after graduating from college, my husband, well, my partner, now husband, and I were on vacation. We'd going to San Francisco for the first time. We were super excited about being in the US and being in California. And we went to a park to sit down and drink some coffee, and kind of heard these like snorting noises and started seeing all these little creatures everywhere. And we had not come across pugs before. Um, we were like, why are there so many of these animals here? And like, what are they? And uh, they are magnificent. We kind of fell in love immediately with all these little snorting creatures everywhere. And we were kind of in this like perfect city, in this perfect state, and the beautiful weather and the beautiful animals, and we were just kind of like, this is what we want for our life. We want these dogs, this state, this life, please.
And then so they just keep reoccurring throughout all your
Yes,
exists.
so I actually started drawing pugs after seeing those pugs. I was inspired to draw them because they're just so, their faces are just meant for being cartoons. Their big eyes, their wrinkles, everything about them, their little bodies and their curly tails. So I started drawing pugs. I think the slide has come up at one point of an image that says "Pugs, not drugs."
Yes.
And that was a T-shirt that I designed. It was initially just a doodle on a napkin, and I started working with a licensing company after working with Threadless. I was contacted by a licensing company, and they just asked for like a bunch of designs, and I sent them the Pugs Not Jokes design, and it ended up being sold in Urban Outfitters, and that was kind of my first experience of a really big, recognizable artwork out in the world. And I kind of said to myself and my husband, if I sell enough of these T-shirts that we can afford to get an actual pug, we should do it. And the T-shirt sold really well. And then we were like, well, I guess we're going to have to get a pug now. And we got our first pug, Mr. Pickles. We were still in England. So we had Mr. Pickles. We got another pug a couple of years later called Bella. And they actually flew with us from the UK to the US. So they got to experience the California life as well for a few years.
Mr. Pickles
Yeah.
and Bella. Yes, nice. So you've been sharing your work online now for over about 15 years or so, right? And how has your relationship with social platforms shifted from maybe those earlier days, what on Tumblr, to now on Instagram, where you have almost 1 million followers on there? I was like shocked to see that, and congratulations on that.
Yeah, it's strange because I just see a number on a page. It doesn't really translate. Obviously, I haven't seen that many people in a room. It's just like, it's just a number to me, and it's grown so organically that I haven't really noticed it creep up as well. And I haven't specifically tried to court more followers or anything like that. It's just, I think because I was there so early on, I was just kind of really lucky to catch that wave of social media and Instagram. And it was like, start at the beginning of Instagram, it felt very personal. Um, and now it's like a completely different beast. But it is, I mean, social media is a great way for promoting work, whether you love it or not.
So is that having 1 million followers definitely helps, or is it just almost a bit of a hindrance having that?
Um, it helps to a point. I think it was more helpful a few years ago. Um, I definitely think there was a kind of heyday of social media where a lot of art directors were on there actively scouting, and now there's just so much of it and so many people, and it's just a little overwhelming for everybody.
And then how's the feedback in the comments been from the community?
It's generally pretty positive. There's always going to be trolls and there's going to be difficult people. I recently learned about something called bean soup theory. I don't know if you've heard about this. It's basically it comes from a video that someone was making on TikTok where they were making this bean soup, and they said it's really great if you're anemic, if you need more iron or protein or whatever. And then everybody in the comments was like, "Well, I don't like beans. What if I don't like beans?" Or like, "Well, I'm not anemic, so why do I need to know about bean soup?" And it's just this idea that everything now, everybody feels entitled to everything being specifically made for them. And it's making things seem a lot flatter and less interesting because like people want everything to be relatable. And obviously it's great if things are relatable, and I'm very happy if I make work that people can relate to. But at the same time, I don't expect everyone to relate to it, because that's not life, that's not human experience, right?
So one thing that I really like about your illustrations is it often touches on mental health.
Hmm.
And you and I had spoken about this a bit on our call earlier. And it's really about with honesty and humor that you put into it. Was it difficult at first to share those personal experiences publicly? And when did you realize it was helping others?
As I mentioned, the early days of social media did feel more personal and small. I mean, obviously, as well, it was smaller. I had less followers. Um, but I wasn't really sure whether I should be sharing personal work on there. It was kind of at the early days where it's like, should this be more of a portfolio? Should I just be sharing photos of my coffee in the morning? Like, it was kind of like a exciting but kind of no man's land time. And so I just kind of one day thought, okay, I'm just going to try sharing one of these like sketches that I've done in my sketchbook um, about my own personal mental health and see what happens. And I shared it, and the response was really positive. And I was like, oh, I think something good is happening here. Um, and then from there, I just started sharing a lot more personal work, and I still try to share as much personal work as possible.
And has that been almost like cathartic doing that, kind of opening up more so about that, especially issues that are kind of very dark for some people and kind of they keep behind closed doors?
For sure. Yeah, I think with mental illness, it can make you feel very alone
Yeah.
and isolated. And, you know, growing up when I was struggling, particularly with anxiety, I felt like I was the only person in the world who felt like that, because I didn't see representation anywhere. And what social media has done is brought mental health to the forefront. It's so much more visible now. And I hope that um, someone might see my work and recognize something in themselves that maybe they hadn't seen before. And I think just having another representation, whereas it's not necessarily text. It's not something that you would read online or see in a movie. It's just a different format of experience.
I just love some of these illustrations here where we're kind of showing background about specifically about your kind of anxiety and how you've been dealing with it and calling it out. So it's been great to see that. So you've described drawing as a visual language rooted in emotion.
Mhm.
How do ideas typically form for you? Do they start as feelings, observations, or teeny doodles in a sketchbook?
They generally start as doodles. So my sketchbook is like an extension of my brain, basically. I have numerous sketchbooks dotted around. I have my little sketchbook that goes in my bag with me. I have my big sketchbook at home. Sometimes I take things from the little sketchbook and I put them in the big sketchbook. Um, so it's like the in between from my brain to the paper. It's how I first learned to understand myself and the world, and it's how I come up with ideas. So I won't necessarily know what's going to happen when I open my sketchbook. Sometimes I am trying to work and come up with an idea. Sometimes, and I try and do this as much as I can, I'm just drawing for drawing's sake and seeing what happens. Just like I've heard it called taking a line for a walk, just like seeing where it takes me.
Yeah. And with that, do you ever experience a creative block? Or if so, what helps you move through it?
Yeah, I have creative blocks all the time, like every day. Um, Before I start drawing, I think that I'm never going to have another idea ever again, especially if I'm on a deadline and I have to come up with something. So one thing that I do is just force myself to draw, get out my sketchbook and draw. And something, I believe that there is an idea in everything, even if it's like just a little germ of an idea. Like, I believe that everything can be funny eventually. Um, and any tiny idea that I have, I will write down because it might turn into something. I often go back to my sketchbook later and look at ideas that I'd started. Like, even I have piles of sketchbooks that I will go through if I feel a bit stuck, and maybe an idea will spark from something that um, originally it was nothing. It was just something really small. If I get very stuck, I find that just leaving the house is the thing that I have to do. And it's not something that I love to do. I like being at home on the couch with my pugs. But ideas can get very stuck when you're indoors. They just bounce off the walls and come back to you. So going outside and just looking at new things and different things and eavesdropping on people's conversations, things like that can all spark ideas.
I was going to say this graphic that you had right here, the map of procrastination. I feel like this is my life right here up on the wall. So definitely can resonate with that one. So here's a kind of a controversial topic. AI has been a major conversation in the creative world, especially when in the illustration side of things. You've seen AI mimic some elements of your style, you were telling me. How do you personally draw the line between this being a helpful tool versus a harmful imitation?
Well, I have seen AI versions of my art, but so far I have not been impressed. I think that AI is good at replicating some art styles, but I think anything that's too simple, it actually struggles with. I think it's better at replicating more detailed stuff, even though it can't get things like hands right. Um, and I do think I'm not like totally against the AI in general. I think that it can be useful. I know people who work in science and medicine who are using AI for good, but I don't personally think that it has a place in art. I think that using AI gets rid of the really important part of art, which is the playing, the in between the sketchbook, even like the boredom that you need to come up with ideas. It's just like you have the initial idea, you put it into the whatever AI thing, and it blurts out a finished product. And the whole point of art, I think, is the in between. Like the ideas process is the most fun part for me, the research and the going back and forth. And even when it's stressful and you're like trying to think of an idea and it's not working, that's part of it too.
Yeah.
So I mean, I can see maybe people might use AI for reference photos, but at the same time, like, you still, it's better, I think, to use your imagination. If you can't think of what something might look like, I think what's going to come out of your own imagination, your brain, is going to be more interesting, even if it's not as accurate as a photo or AI.
Yeah. What makes you still passionate about what you're doing? What keeps driving you each day?
I think that always having new projects to work on is really, I think that I'm just really lucky to be in an area of art that, or an area of work that is constantly new. There's always going to be a new project. I work in so many different areas. Like, one day I might be doing like a children's book cover, the next I might be doing an animation. Um, it's just so exciting to see what will happen next. And I'm also I've also been really lucky to be able to work on a lot of personal projects recently. I just finished working on my first full-length graphic novel, um, and it's something that I've been wanting to do for years. Like, it's been in the back of my head since art school, pretty much. And the fact that I've actually been able to do that and had the time and space to do that is amazing. But now I'm like, what's next? Like, I don't know. And that's exciting too.
So you mentioned about this book, so we have it up here.
Oh, yeah. That was good
Sideline.
timing.
So tell us about the process of going through this. And is this your first novel you've done
Yeah.
that's solely your own?
Yes. So it's my first full-length graphic novel.
Yeah.
I have done books which are kind of more like collections of comics. And that's the way that I'm most used to working is short form comics. So you have like maybe 9 panels would be my maximum. And I'd have 9 panels and a punchline, and that would be it. And it's all self contained. Whereas this graphic novel is a through narrative, which required a lot more planning and structure, which is not something that I excel at. I think that's why I'm drawn to short form comics, because it's kind of one and done. So it was definitely a learning curve. I wasn't sure how to approach it. I've always written and drawn together. I don't really see them as separate in my work. When I'm writing and drawing, it kind of happens organically at the same time. So I was thinking maybe I should write a script almost for the book. I tried doing that, didn't work at all. So I was kind of trying to figure out how I could make it happen. And what I ended up doing was clearing an entire wall in my house and just literally drawing pages, sticking them on the wall, 400 pages, all stuck up on the wall, moving them around where necessary. It was difficult, and it was, I mean, I'm happy with how it's turned out, but it was definitely the most challenging job that I've done.
Do we expect to see another book maybe following this afterwards?
Well, I hope so. Yeah, I think now I have a slightly better idea of how to do it, but maybe a little break. Yeah.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing this one come out for sure. So with that, for the students and the young creatives that are out there, what's the one piece of advice you wish someone had given you when you were just starting out?
I think that I would say not to try and follow trends is quite important, especially nowadays. There are quite a lot of trends in illustration. There's a lot of illustrators in general. And with algorithms and social media, you tend to get a lot of the same sort of thing. And I think it's more important to stay true to yourself, and find the style that you are recognizable for. You want an art director or someone who's going to commission you to want you for yourself. Like that's the person specifically that I want, not this is a person who's an illustrator and they can do anything. They can do different styles. I mean, maybe that's something that some people would prefer, but personally, I want to be recognized for myself. I want people to look at my work and say, that's a Gemma Correll drawing. I make it easy by drawing stripes on myself all the time and pugs.
Well, on behalf of all of us, we want to say thank you so much for gracing our stage and showing your authentic self to all of us here. So thank you with that. So everyone, round of applause for Gemma.
Thank you.